The point method for offering constructive feedback consists of 5 steps. Not surprisingly, these steps correlate to the 5 letters of the POINT acronym. Before reviewing each of the 5 steps and giving you a chance to practice applying them, it is important to know what constructive feedback really is and is not. Constructive feedback is not a solution. It does not solve problems, it merely leads to problem solving, or to more stringent corrective action if the problem is not remedied. Constructive feedback is simply objective information and a description of the impact of that information, without any shading or judgmental context. Often, even with the best of intentions, supervisors and managers will use terminology that is more critical than constructive when trying to give feedback. Not a team player, slacker, unprofessional, or other such terms do not really describe a behavior. They only describe a perception of why a behavior may be evident. As you review the POINT method, be sure to assess how objective your descriptions are. You may find it helpful to revisit the Performance Management Continuum worksheet and think about the behaviors you listed as not meeting performance expectations. Constructive feedback is appropriate for situations or reviews when performance is not severe enough to warrant disciplinary action. Now let's review each of the POINT steps. The P stands for positive purpose. Just as it is important when effectively setting performance expectations to first state why the expectation matters, it is also important to clearly explain your positive purpose when offering constructive feedback. Allow me to offer a few starter phrases you may want to jot down so you will have them on your worksheet for future reference. Because it's important to. In order for you to be successful in your job. Because you and I both want to see you succeed here. Now pause this presentation, and as you consider an opportunity to give constructive feedback, write a positive purpose statement on your worksheet. Why is it important for you to give this person this constructive feedback? Next is objective behavioral description. Just as it is important to give rewards for performance measures which are objectively measurable, it is critical that you offer constructive feedback for objectively measurable performance deficiencies. Such measures will almost always include some sort of numerical metric, something quantifiable in terms of time, money, quality, productivity, efficiency, or customer impact. For example, 3 days in the past 2 weeks, you have arrived at work between 15 and 30 minutes late. The expectation is that phone calls be returned the same day and emails within 24 hours, and yet I have not heard back from you for over a week. At 3 of 5 of the last team meetings, when we've gone around the table to gather suggestions, you sat with your arms crossed, looking at your watch, and when it came your turn, you just shrugged your shoulders and rolled your eyes. Now pause the presentation and write a brief objective description of the behavior you have observed and would like to see corrected. Next in the POINT method is the impact, or the natural consequences. When describing the impact of the behavior that is less than meeting expectations on the continuum, it is important to do so in terms of natural consequences. What will the impact be on a client, a coworker, an objective, a goal, an outcome, or a relationship? Describing impact in terms of organizational consequences makes it clear that your fundamental interest is the overall mission of the organization. Be careful not to describe the impact in a way which the feedback recipient might consider a threat to his or her job. Remember, constructive feedback is not disciplinary action. It is appropriate for performance that needs to be improved, but it is intended to help performers who want to do the job and do it right, not discipline performers whose failure to meet the expectation falls to the extreme left on the continuum. Here are some phrases you might use at the beginning of the impact part of your POINT constructive feedback message. And when that happens, and that means, and the unavoidable impact of that is. Now, again, pause the presentation and write a description of the impact of the behavior you observed. Be sure to focus on the natural consequences of the behavior if not corrected or improved. The N in the POINT acronym stands for Not About You. Up until now, in this constructive feedback message, you have done all or most of the talking, but now it is important to listen to understand how things look from the performer's perspective. If you have clearly stated your positive purpose, objectively described behavior, and made clear the naturally occurring impact of the behavior, you will find that the feedback recipient will not become defensive or push back. He or she may even thank you for the feedback before beginning to work on solutions. Why? Because constructive feedback given in this manner is designed to help the performer be more successful. It is in the performer's best interest. It is not perceived as unfair criticism. At this juncture, though, you must be ready to listen carefully. Do not interrupt or assert your authority. There may be other factors you are unaware of. There may be challenges or impediments the performer is facing. You must listen to understand the performer's frame of reference before responding with advice, expectations, or demands. You will want to consider how you think the feedback recipient might respond when you ask, "So, what do you think about this?" or "What's your take here?" or "Does this match your understanding of the situation?" So now pause the presentation and write a description of how you believe the feedback recipient may react. Last in the POINT acronym is the T, and it stands for Together Go for Solutions. If you have followed the method up until now, you should be pleasantly surprised. You will see feedback recipients beginning to take accountability for their own solutions. There will be times, though, when the recipient will need your help figuring out how to make the necessary correction. In these cases, you will want to resist the temptation to simply tell the performer what to do. The best leaders communicate the why and the what, but leave the how up to the person who is actually doing the job. This approach cultivates a sense of ownership within the performer. Of course, this approach is not appropriate with some tasks and in some situations, especially when safety or unbending regulations are involved, for instance. But again, violations of these types of performance requirements fall further to the left on the continuum. Constructive feedback may not be the most appropriate tool for situations which might result in more severe consequences. If the feedback recipient is not resistant and is willing to seek solutions, but is truly at a loss as to what might be the best way forward, you might offer suggestions from your own experience or share the best practices of others. In these cases, in order to help point the way towards maximum performance, you will want to do two things. First, make suggestions, but do not take responsibility for the other person's results. Keep the onus of accountability on the performer. Your main goal as a leader is to develop people who accept responsibility and perform reliably, competently, and independently. Secondly, manage your own expectations. The time you spend effectively setting expectations, providing rewards and recognition, and giving constructive feedback is an investment in your people. It is an investment which requires time and effort, but will pay enormous dividends when your team is willing, ready, and able to perform the way you want them to. Now print a fresh copy of the PDF Point worksheet and write a constructive feedback message you intend to offer someone back on the job. Post your Point constructive feedback message in Forum 4A. Good luck!